Mantrix was first hatched from my PhD, which is on psychedelics and language, and then the idea of marrying that with all of Roz's experience in psychedelic media and PR. But in reality, this has been formulating for 2 lifetimes. You know, we're drawing on a lifetime's worth of
absolute obsession with words and the way we use them and how that makes us feel, and the different doorways that can be closed or opened with the language choices that we make, and what happens when you make more and more of that processing conscious.
This isn't just a labour of love. We see this gaping hole in psychedelic discourse.
And it's a huge deficit that we actually encounter every time we have a conversation about psychedelics, when it falls back into the metaphors that get used all the time, the same conceptualizations over and over again, this kind of chasm between the possibilities of like where we could go in these conversations and then where we get stuck with the language we're using just seems to open up wider and wider. So
we're bringing together the roots of how we're affected by language, but also some of the language patterns that are all around us.
And it's not very easy to construct elevator pictures or quick slogans.
It's not that we're not good at elevator pictures. We know how elevator pictures work. We're just saying that what we are actually doing is revealing how all these complex webs of concepts can't be condensed into an elevator pitch, and we should stop having that as the linguistic standard, as the discourse standard for information.
Because that is what creates this enormous dichotomy between when you read a newspaper article, you know that that's not reality such as it is as you experience it in front of you. You know it's a mediation, but when we reduce the language of drug policy and psychedelic science to these very few metaphors and tropes and kind of turn it into something 2D, we end up in this world that has nothing to do with the live web of feelings and complex codes that can underlie it.
We end up dictating somebody's experience. The great potential of psychedelics is the diversity of...
You read a retreat description and then you get primed with this idea that you're going to have a transcendent experience, but actually when we have the awareness that that's actually a term that's been plucked from scientific papers and then it's kind of been shorn of its context and implanted into the retreat description, it suddenly feels a lot more acceptable for it to make no sense. It can feel very like being lost in a maze of meaningless descriptions.
If you have an ayahuasca experience and it's not Mother Ayahuasca that comes to you, it's a little old man with a walking stick.
Yeah, or a girl with loads of biros falling out of her eyes.
Then that's not an invalid experience. A Mother Ayahuasca, it's a thing we've hooked on, blown way out of proportion.
We like the questions that beget more questions, and the idea that there's not a straight answer.